Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth podcast, which is our part of a campaign called Career Wellbeing. And I am Gautam. I'm currently taking care of marketing and operations in Invisol. Here with us, Akash Sriramoju is an educational psychologist. So, in the previous podcast, we have talked about AI and future jobs and how youngsters need to take career decision or how they need to decide their career considering future scenarios. Today, it's a very interesting and very important topic we are discussing, which is called neurodivergence. And before getting to our questions, Akash, kindly quickly give an intro of yourself and start. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gautam. We are doing this again. We're trying to keep this as a habit by talking about different topics in the domain of career guidance every week. So, in our campaign of career well-being, today we are doing this podcast primarily to create awareness about neurodivergence and how children go through this whole process in India, like what is happening with them and all that. So, as you said, my name is Akash Sriramoju. I did my master's in neural and cognitive science, and we are building this invisible product since last 7 8 months, and we are trying to change how career guidance is perceived and followed in Indian society. So that's how we are in this journey, and we are doing this awareness initiatives as well.
Yeah. So, coming to my first question, Akash. So, what is neurodivergence and why are we talking about today? And is it important right now?
Yeah. So actually, this neurodivergence word itself is a very new thing, even in the world and even in the Indian society. It just started like 2 decades ago. When you go back to some little bit history, like who coined this word? So there's one sociologist in Australia. Her name is Judy Singer. Sorry, so her name is Judy Singer. So she coined this name in one particular book. She authored it. So on this basis of the name called neurodivergence. So what is the concept behind this neurodivergence is like not every human being are different or same. So every human being are different. So the brain is also wired differently. So, as we know about this whole concept of biodiversity, right? So, when you talk about nature or environment, you have different kind of animal species and also the plants and all the aspects of flora and fauna. So, composition of all these aspects, you have this biodiversity. Similar to that, what she thought is like not every human being is same. Their brain is wired differently, and that's how we are basically neurodivergence kind of people. Like there's a diversity of uh, brains which are there in the outside world. So that's how she came up with this concept called neurodivergence, especially to address one important thing what is emerging at that time is called mental disability or mental disorders. So we know about there are so many mental disabilities or disorders. Right now, we should not say this thing, but medically speaking, these are the terms which people diagnose and label them with, like dyslexia, ADHD, autism, and all that. So we in 90s and at that time we used to think so these people are very much don't have abilities to learn or abilities to communicate well or abilities to pursue the environment around them or socialize in any situation. So they used to categorize them as a mentally disabled people or a kind of a disorder. The disability has changed to disorder. Right now, people are also saying that these people are not having any kind of disorder or something, but they are wired differently. So since last 20 30 years, this movement has started. We are seeing this neurodivergent people or who have this kind of mental disability or disorder. We are not seeing that only the negatives of whatever they have, but they also have some kind of positives. They are good at memory, they are good at creative thinking, they're good at logical analysis, they're good at visualizing something. So because of this all aspects, they have so much of positives as well, not the so much of negatives. So we the whole society thought the people who are in this world, they have different kind of brains. Not everybody's brain is same. So we also have some kind of normal or typical people. What we call typical people is like who function normally, like they have normal communication, normally they can read or not, they can socialize among people. So they are normal people, they are categorized as neurotypical. So basically you have this kind of disorders, they are considered as neurodivergent. So now this whole movement has started in the last 20 years, where we need to accommodate the people who have different brain structure as well. So that's how this neurodivergence word has become popular. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very good insight, Akash. As you have mentioned, you bought the story from back like 1970s and from the Australia, how an individual person take out this topic on neurodivergence and differentiated the neurotypical people and also neurodiverse people. And even I feel it is very important to uh, create awareness on these kind of neurodivergence or neurodiversity and what are the things happen when an individual has a learning disability specifically. So as for me, only I understand as a learning disability. But when I started researching on this topic, I got to know there are many different aspects in this. So you have mentioned in neurodivergence there is ADHD, and you have a couple of times mentioned previous about your story, which is dyslexic, and also there are other topics as autism as well. And so when I'm going through this process, at some point there is a story. It got caught my head is that there is a movie called Tare Zameen Par in a Bollywood,
Yeah.
which is a good box office. So it got me like I think from that moment there is a good impact got created in many education institutions, or at least parents got good awareness on this dyslexic. So no, I just wanted to understand like how did Tare Zameen Par that movie help bring this topic into the spotlight, and do you think is that the only way this kind of awareness would have happened, and how individual as who are getting into career industry or career guidance industry, and what do you think? I need understand your perspective on this.
Yeah. So as you said, there are different kind of people who fall under this neurodivergence. So basically, it comes from ADHD. The ADHD are basically children or people who have attention deficit, and also they are very much hyperactive. So attention deficit hyperactive in the sense they are not able to concentrate on any particular task, whichever you give to them, and they're very much hyperactive. They can't stop their thoughts or they can't stop their communication. They frequently interrupt other people to make their point, and there'll be so much of impulsivity also will be there. They're very much impulsive. So this ADHD are one group of children who also fall under neurodivergence, and there's something called autistic children. Now it's autistic is also a kind of spectrum, so it's called autistic spectrum disorder. Like some kind of children or adults may have extreme kind of autistic symptoms, and some may have only normal autistic symptoms. So the symptoms may look like they are not able to socialize with people, they're not able to talk about what they are feeling in inside, or they're not able to understand what is happening, like any kind of humor or jokes, or basically it comes down to socialization and also their internal world what they create, and they don't communicate so much with the other people as well. So this comes under the artistic spectrum disorder. And there's another thing which is called learning disorders. So apart from autism, apart from ADHD, there's another thing called learning disorders. In this learning disorders itself, there where this Tare Zameen Par movie comes into the picture. So learning disorder are also composed of other aspects, like if you call
Mm,
like learning disorders. One is dyslexia, is a one
okay.
learning disorder which you have seen in the Tare Zameen Par movie.
Yeah.
In that movie, the Darsil Safari basically is not able to understand how to read something or how to write something. So he is not able to communicate what he is able to say in English or any other language. But at the same time, he's very very well in the painting and artistic side. So that is how I said, right? So these neurodivergence people, they have some kind of challenges what they face with communication or learning something or perceiving the surroundings and all, but they are very good at other aspects, like these kind of gifted things they have: creativity, logical thinking, or visualizing something. So that's how this movie also showed this whole concept of dyslexia very well. But that dyslexia, or what is portrayed over there, is again an extreme end. There are certain kind of students or adults who have surface level dyslexia as well. So they may not have such a confusion of what is happening around them, but they have some kind of dyslexia symptoms. So they are not able to communicate very well in English, or even their mother tongue they can't write. These all things happen. So this dyslexia is a one thing which falls under learning disability. But there's other things called dyscalculia. It's called they're not able to understand mathematics, they're not able to memorize multiplication tables. And there's another thing called dysgraphia. It's called they're not able to write things, so they commit spelling mistakes when they are writing. So this all dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, all this falls under learning disorders. So basically, these all things we started labeling children from last 30,
Yes.
40 years because of this DSM is a one manual which psychiatrists and psychologists follow. Every 5 years or 10 years, it is updated. It's basically prepared in America, so American Psychological Association, and they got together and they prepared this DSM. So in DSM manual, you have all this disorders and symptoms of the disorders are listed down in that manual. Every psychiatrist and clinical psychologist will use that to diagnose children. Now, by labeling the children itself from last 30, 40 years, it became a kind of a thing like the children started demotivated. Like we are not
Correct.
a normal people, we are not we have something, some kind of problem in us. So because of all these aspects, the neurodivergence movement has picked up. So you're
Mm,
not a differently abled person, or you're not a mentally disabled person, you have a different kind of a brain. So that's how this neurodivergence movement started. And Tare Zameen Par movie, which has come up like decade ago, right? So it really
correct.
created some impact in India. So that's how right now the new movie is also coming, going to come the second part.
Mm,
Maybe in these days, the schools are also trying to accommodate neurodivergence people, and they are creating some support teachers for them, for students.
mm,
I hope it's things will also change more
correct.
after maybe next movie is going to come, or maybe after a
Mm,
few years. Yeah.
yeah. So even when I'm watching that movie at that time, I didn't feel like there's something. No, it's kind of a disorder. It just feel like he has some kind of learning disability. So he, and also sometimes I feel he's just delusional, or he's completely he's getting illusions of different letters or different words, right? So once it was done, it was complete surprise for me how the first part he has such kind of learning disability, and how difficult for him to learn aspects, and also he's completely alone. He has a specific routine. He don't want to talk to any other individuals. So considering seeing that, once the second part was entered, once you have done a specific painting, then it got completely surprised for me. Like, how is this possible? For me, it is like complete a disabled person. Maybe it is mentally disabled, but at that moment, what I thought. And lately, he's completely creative. The drawing is out of the picture. So when I started researching on that, now I got to know it's a good concept which is taken, considered, either to create an awareness or just to show out there. It's a very good story at that moment, what I felt. And now feeling that these kind of movies need to come, because as you know, in India, either cricket or movies is one of the biggest platform for platforms for promotion. But that shouldn't be the only way, right? This topic should be talked in each and every educational ecosystem, communities, even in the startup world. These topics need to be talked continuously because that's what I feel. And I also wanted to understand when it comes to, as you have clearly mentioned, ADHD, dyslexic, and many other aspects in neurodivergence, right? Can you just tell me a couple of like any specific myths you have heard previously in this neurodivergence? And you can burst it right now, actually. Or if people misunderstanding this neurodivergence as something else.
So yeah, basically right now there are two things are going on in the current world. Even the professionals also criticizing about neurodivergence. Like there are certain type of professionals who are criticizing, who are also supporting. So the basic myths are like basically every neurodivergent person, like if you say, if somebody is self-identifying themselves as dyslexic or a autistic or a maybe ADHD person, now what happened in the common jargons, or when we use every, so many people used to say that I have an OCD, I have OCD, I'm an ADHD, I'm an dyslexic. Now these became like a label, and also people are saying outward to make them feel proud.
And
So
also
what is happening
accepting,
is
yeah.
like so there is a one problem which is going on in the current world. Everybody is using the labels just like that, even though they may not have this kind of brain structure, but they are using these labels. So that is the thing what is going on. And another aspect is like what people, general people believe is like when you say dyslexic, when you say autistic, when you say ADHD, every time they see a extreme case. Like if I say I'm a dyslexic, they only remember about Dasil Safari, jo Tare Zamin Par movie mein, that extreme case is there, right? They'll only remember that. Then they'll compare. Now that Dasil Safari has so much of problem and complex situation. Now you're also saying you are a dyslexic, how it is comparable. So here the people are not understanding is like not every dyslexic is again same. It's that there is a spectrum. Like
Mhm.
some people have complex things, some people have surface level things, but they are dyslexic, they have this kind of symptoms. So not every person may have all the symptoms, not every person will have complex situation. But if the other person is not there, if they don't have this complexity, you can't just discard them and say you are not a dyslexic. So this is also a problem which is there. There are kind of things which are happening in neurodivergence. People who are self identifying as a neurodivergent simply and using the words just like that. Another thing is, even though you have only little bit of symptoms, but they always this dyslexia or autistic or ADHD will happen along with some other things. Now, in any other case, the dyslexia also combines with other disability. Like they may have, if somebody dyslexic who is not able to read, they can also have a dyscalculia. They are not able to understand mathematics. There's a high probability of having two things at the same time. So, because of all these aspects, so these two trends are going on. People are identifying themselves and normalizing the things because of this Instagram reels and reels based culture. People are going to normalizing like anything. Now, who has the real uh, who falls under real neurodivergence, who doesn't fall under, we are not able to distinguish. So this is the thing happening with first trend, and second trend is that people discarding the symptoms even though they have. So
Mm.
unfortunately, in Indian case, what happened is like even though we have this DSM manual, which even psychiatrists and clinical psychologists follow in India, but actually the assessments, the psychological assessments which are needed to diagnose somebody who has a dyslexic or who has autistic condition or ADHD, these assessments are very much important. These assessments are even developed in Western countries. Right now we don't have assessments which are um, in the context of India, which are developed and also validated. So, because of that, also not many people can be diagnosed in
Mm.
India. So, this is another problem.
Mm.
So, it is going on. Because of that, not many people are left out undiagnosed in India.
Mm.
So because
Yeah.
of even the lack of education quality in the early years also will be reflected in their language abilities, if at all a learning disorder is there. If you go to some bad school, maybe most of the government schools are not at the par with right now some kind of standard in the private. So there are highly chances like most of the students who are coming out of the education system, they have a problem with language. And if that problem is really due to the bad quality of education or due to the his neurodivergence, or he falls on neurodivergence, we may not be able to distinguish,
Yes.
because that is a situation right now we are facing in India.
Yeah. I
Um,
think there's a lot of misuse happening with this, the neurodivergence and the words coming out from social media and many other platforms. It's rightly, said that, there should be a borderline or a proper structure need to be created in the educational institutions to find out whether there is a proper, actual disability, learning disability, or how we need to understand he is little different from others, how he is brain wired from others. Based on the assessments need to be well structured and also well implemented in the institutions. And also these kind of myths need to be busted out there. The continuous awareness need to be happen. That's what I feel. And one more thing I wanted to ask, before getting into last question, it's out of curiosity, is that, how this, considering if any individual person is neurodivergent, for taking an example, is little dyslexic, even though he has very keen interest in studies, but he is unable to cope up with the fellow students in writing or in reading. How does it impact on his self-image? What do you think, or what is your take on it? How it impacts in self-image?
yeah, so that's a really good question, Gautam. So basically, if a person who has any kind of dyslexia or any kind of other disorders which falls under neurodivergence. So, in my case itself, like I am not clinically diagnosed as a dyslexic person or anything, but based on my understanding of my past, like what happened in my school. So I had a school phobia. This is diagnosed like at the time we went to the psychiatrist and he said that I have a school phobia. So I
Hmm.
never used to go to the school. Have a very difficulty in going to school. That is the case. But that everybody knows I have a school phobia and didn't like the school environment and all that. But later on, I realized I had something called dyslexia also, which the symptoms which are not diagnosed at that time. So most of the Indian case, most of the people who right now call themselves a dyslexia or ADHD or anything, they are mostly self-diagnosed. Some people are taking a active chance and going and diagnosing themselves, which even the Western-based assessments which have come up. So what happens is like at that time I was like I was not able to write English very well. Uh, Even up to 10th class, I used to struggle with spellings. Not only English. You may think English is a foreign language. We may not be accustomed with that. But even I have struggled with Telugu, Hindi, and all the languages. So I can't write a proper sentence of English, Telugu, Hindi, which is having error ही नहीं होता ना. I say I can't write. So I always will have spelling mistakes in that, grammatical mistakes in that. So I hardly passed 10th. So this is a very symptom like this. If some students or anybody sees my book, they realize I have spelling mistakes. Even in the 10th class, I am writing English in a spelling mistake kind of a thing, right? I was not writing a correct way, all the spellings, small spellings. So this creates so much of demotivation for the child. It creates embarrassment in front of other people. If a teacher sees their book, then he says, even in the 10th, you can't write this spelling. Then what happens in the class? Like his whole motivation goes down, his or her
Hmm.
motivation.
Correct.
These kind of things I also faced. But
Hmm.
luckily, I passed the 10th. It was really difficult for me to pass the 10th. And after that, I was really happy. And I never used to again. Then I thought there's no, again, Telugu, Hindi, all these things are not there. I felt very happy. But English
Yeah.
is a thing which for I tried to develop very well. Like it was a hard road, hard way. I have picked up the languages. Even the speaking is very much difficult for dyslexic people. So they have to learn how to pronounce, how to speak, to having a grammar. So if a some child who has who thinks he is very much same like another people in the class, then even though they have some kind of a dyslexia or something, they constantly compare with other people and their motivation will go down, and they never do anything in their coming years. They feel very much demotivated. They feel that I am a dull student. I can't do anything, and they keep on blaming themselves. They
Yeah.
also don't know that their brain is wired differently.
Yeah.
One thing which helped me from early years is like I used to think I'm different from anybody. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
behaving this way. So I used to think something is there in me. Maybe I'm a
Mhm.
superhero or something. I'm different than all other people which around me. So that helped me to cope up and learn the things at my own pace. So I
Mhm.
suggest any neurodivergent person or a teenager or for a parent who's watching this, please acknowledge the symptoms what they are saying. You also learn about what is neurodivergent, what all things falls under this neurodivergent. There are so much of resources available right now outside. You talk to some professional. If at all you got to know from the professional your child is going through this kind of things, please don't demotivate them. You think about what are the strengths they have. They always have certain kind of strengths. In my
Mhm.
case, I have a strength of I am also creative. I also used to think in a different way. So these all things helped me to cope up with my journey. So that is what
Mhm.
I would like to say to every parent and a teenager. Neurodivergence is a kind of a thing like your brain is just wired differently. It's not like you are a dull student or you don't have these kind of capabilities. Do you have other capabilities which are very much good than normal people or neurotypical people? So you may
Mhm.
have good memory, you are very much creative, you may have a good understanding of outside world, can visualize things. So then based on these other abilities which you are good at, you take these as your strengths and work on that, so that you can eventually have a career in that direction. So this is the thing I would like to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rightly said, Akash. Even I feel so. Even when a basic understanding, when we observe any individual students, if he feels he has any certain disability or he couldn't cope up with any other fellow students, the first thing goes out of get into his mind is like probably I'm not meant to be in, this way, or his self-confidence completely gets dropped down. So it might completely affect his studies or whatever he has in if even it's get difficult to get dreams or aspirations, right? So it's clearly you mentioned that being different is okay. I mean, it is being different is powerful. That's so because you still have many strengths which you need to realize, or you need to realize your strengths. You need to acknowledge, or you need to discover yourself. You need to think about your capability. The same thing applies to the parent when they see their children are behaving differently, or are does they have any learning disabilities, or they might finding certain difficulties in sports, in games, or in learning, or any other aspects. You mentioned just they need to acknowledge, or if they couldn't treat, or I mean they couldn't understand completely, either they need to take to the good career counselor, or I mean any other counselor who is expertise, have a specific expertise in that. And it's and finally, before closing, I would like to say ask one more question, Akash. I mean, as we are into career guidance industry, right? And we are already talking to many institutions, schools, or any other colleges. Suppose, what do you say to any institution when they find any specific neurodivergence people, and how they need to treat them, or how they need to be well equipped to find this kind of students, and treating them equally as other students. Still, understanding them and helping them, how they need to support this kind of students.
Yeah, so basically here in this case, in every institution or a school, teacher plays a one huge role. Like
Correct.
teacher will find out very much early on, like they has this access to students and what they do in the class and how they work on their homework and all. Parents may observe the students at children at their home. They also have the access. But if at all there's something related to learning disability, learning disorders, teachers can find out early on. When they find out this thing, if the pattern is repeating frequently, then you have to call the parents and talk to them and understand what is happening with the child. And at that point of time, you can seek some professional help, some clinical psychologist to you can go and visit them. Now there are so many clinical psychologists who are specialized in this diagnosing as well, to diagnose any person who has some kind of learning disability or autism or ADHD or any other kind of disorders which falls under neurodivergence. Now if you go to a professional, they can diagnose initially. After diagnosis, then I can say this, after you diagnose, I think this neurodivergence or any kind of disorder is a lifelong thing. You can't cure it. There's no cure for this. But when
Mm.
you diagnose, at least you'll know. Now you'll understand why my child is behaving this way. Now there are certain type of coping strategies where you can manage your symptoms. So managing the symptoms itself, what you can do from the early on. If this intervention managing the symptoms starts from the early on, when the child becomes an adult, then he can be managing the whole things in his work life or in a professional life very well. So this early on intervention is needed. So that's why a teacher, a parent identifying its children's what they are doing at home in the classroom is very much important, and consulting a professional is another second step. And after that, third step is having an intervention like managing the symptoms. Now in some good international schools, they are also providing a support teacher for
Mm.
autistic child or a dyslexic child in the schools, is one support teacher for one kid. So this is happening in very privileged schools, not anywhere. But I believe right now, most of the schools right now, even in the urban areas or rural areas, they have to understand that every children, like 10 in 1 in 10 students may have these kind of neurodivergence. They are neurodivergent students maybe. So we need to have such a kind of ecosystem and also support system to help students to excel in the academics, to also support them emotionally and also to deal with their symptoms. So this is what I would like to say. There's a long way to go because
Mm.
India is just trying to understand what is this neurodivergence and what are all these disorders. Now in only international schools and some CBSE schools we have support system. We need to get them to the all the schools across India. Even the government should intervene and take a role in creating awareness and also creating the support ecosystem in public
Yes.
schools and also private schools. Yeah.
Thank you, Akash. I mean, even I feel proud, very proud that we are talking about this topic and probably will be part of this awareness in this neurodivergence topic. And so we have completed our podcast. And to all the audience, thank you for watching this video very patiently. And as I said in the previous video also, as the attention span is getting reduced, but thank you for the audience, how they patiently watch the whole video. And to watch more videos like this, or we want us to discuss on more similar topics or career related any other topics, you can put it in the comment section if you want us to talk about. And kindly subscribe our channel, and we'll be continuously doing the videos for you. And thank you. Thank you, Akash.
Thank you, Gautam. Thanks, everyone.